Preseason football is about to end, and then, excuse me, let me put this light on, man. Better lighting in here. I know my lighting is not the best right now, but just please be assured that I am working. Better lighting, better setting, better quality, better channel, better everything. That's what I'm all about all day. But it got to start somewhere. I'm not finding excuses why not to start. But anyway, let's get to it. This video is going to be about just the preseason, how important actually the preseason actually is. And I'll dabble with this topic a little bit. At first, I was going to make this video based on Bill Cowher on his perspective on preseason, because he was on the Pat McAfee show talking about preseason football, what was his perspective on it, and how he used the preseason when he coached for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm going to play a segment on that as well, a clip on that, and him talking about that. Bill Cowher, I mean, he's a very credible coach. He's a coach to learn from, to listen to. And I got into a little bit of a debate about this, because some people were trying to, I don't know if they really think that preseason so-called doesn't matter, because it does matter. It's not, and it is important. But that's because it matters, and that is important. It doesn't mean that it matters more than a regular season game, and it's as significant as a regular season game. But the preseason is very important, and it does matter, because if it didn't, then what's the point of having it? There is a reason to have preseason games. And most of all, I will say the main reason, significant reason for the preseason to even happen is for a player development. I mean, when I used to play football, that's literally what it was for. It was for trial and error, to test schemes, to test plays, to check out your personnel, for coaches to dabble and to try certain things out, and for you to be able to get that football energy back, you know, when you're going against another team, as opposed to hitting up on each other all day long. Now you get to hit up on somebody else, and it's getting you into that more realistic feeling of game time, of game speed. It's literally like a very slow process, and it's going to give you into that gel of getting into the game of the regular season. I mean, you could train all season. You could train all season long. You can get all the trainers in the world. You can do all these other things, but nothing compares to putting those pads on and going head to head. Nothing compares to that. And nothing compares to putting those pads on and going head to head against another team, regardless if it's preseason or not. It doesn't matter if it's second strings or third strings. I mean, to a certain extent, it doesn't matter, but it still does matter, because what I'm trying to say is that when you're playing in the preseason, you need to play in the preseason as well. So you also it can help you to not get injured. It can help you to it's developing your body just to get more involved with football, as opposed to you just skipping the whole preseason and you jump into regular season, and then you can get hurt. I mean, you're not getting your body into that form. So I mean, that's my perspective on preseason. Some people think they don't really too much care about it, which I understand if you're just a fan, if you're just a football fan. But if you have a football mind, if you are a person who dives really deep into football, who is more than just a fan of the game, you know that preseason definitely does matter, and it has a very significant part in football. So that's my take on that. But I don't know. Like, some people were like, Caleb Williams did a really great job this past two preseason games, and some people were trying to knock him for it. And I mean, everybody who knows me knows how big of a fan I am of Caleb Williams. I'm a diehard USC fan. I mean, two quarterbacks that I'm really big on: Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Caleb Williams. But some guy was saying Mahomes like, because some people were saying he's Mahomes like and everything because of the miraculous throws that he was throwing in the game. And he goes, relax, it's just preseason. And so I'm just trying to figure out what exactly does that mean. Like, what do you mean that it's just preseason? And so the guy, he says it means that backups are in the game and nothing is being schemed by teams. It's a dress rehearsal. Therefore, when you have someone who should be a superstar player based on draft position playing against backups, he's going to look better than he really is. Possibly, probably. And so I say, when you say that it means that backups are in the game and nothing is being schemed by teams, part of that statement is true for the regular season, as backups do play in those games too. So what I'm basically saying is that you're saying that that all preseason there's only backups playing. That's not. First off, that's not accurate because starters play as well. The starters play first, and then the backups play. So it's just not only backups. Sometimes, especially nowadays, most of the time, starters don't play that as often. But especially in the back, especially back in the day, starters used to play a full first half in preseason. Okay, so it just became in more recent times where starters will probably only play. They went from like one quarter and then like only a few segments, a few plays, stuff like that. So that's not entirely accurately true. And even with that being said, even if starters weren't playing and backups were only playing, or guys who's only trying to make the team are only playing, it still holds a huge significance because those guys are playing for a reason. Some of them are not only playing just to get a starting job, or not just to get a starting job. Some of them are not only playing just to get a spot on the roster. They're also being played so coaches can get a feel and get an idea and get a visual idea and a visual experience of how their personnel fits in these different schemes and plays that the coaches are running during the games. So all of that matters. It's about the depth, the roster, all that. If plays work in different situations, it's all situational. Football is complementary. It's situational. It's about matchups. Coaches are taking notes on all of this. Scouts are even taking notes at this stuff. They're looking at some scouts are also even looking at how other players perform on the opposite side of the ball. So they're saying like if this player somehow gets cut, we can reach out to this player to come fit our system. That's what the preseason is all about. It's not just dress rehearsal. It's development. It's getting a team a look and an experience on other teams and on other players and on their current players and how their schemes and their system fits while in game situation and how they match up against these other players. And so it's another thing too. And in preseason too, preseason football, training camp and all that, especially in the preseason, it's not just about just making the team. You want to see if you can make the league, make the NFL. Because you may not make that team, but you can make the NFL. Because now you can have some good game tape. Because your college tape may not be that good, or you could probably been overlooked in college, or you probably didn't even play college ball. I was in that situation. I was trying to make my way into getting into training camp with the NFL, so I can just, because I didn't have any college game tape, I didn't have any high school tape. So, but I was trying my hardest to see how I can get into preseason games and how I can play, or at least go in training camp, so I can show my skills, so I can make that 53-man roster, And so I know guys who actually done that. They didn't have any game, they didn't have any film. They somehow made their way into the NFL and make their way into training camp and got into preseason games. So that's what it's about. And so you may not make that team, but now you got tape of you playing in the NFL now, and now you can send that off to other 31 teams in the NFL. And if you are to those teams liking, they can reach out to you and they can bring you in. And then you got a career, if you make that team. So that's how it happens. That's what happened that's how James Harrison made the NFL. James Harrison was not drafted. James Harrison did not go to the NFL Combine. He was not drafted. He went to a small school. He was overlooked. He played in NFL Europe and everything. And then he got his shot. He got cut by the Ravens. That was his last team he got cut by. Then he went to the Steelers. The Steelers gave him a shot. He showed out, and then he made his mark in training camp and in preseason. And as many players has done that. Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis was a backup. He wasn't even a backup. He was on special teams in the preseason, and he's known for that miraculous special teams play that he did. Knocked the player out of his boots, and then after that, it was all said and done. Terrell Davis, Hall of Fame running back. So it happens. I mean, so that's what the preseason is about, man. It's about making a name for yourself. It's about getting that money, getting your livelihood started. So the preseason football definitely does matter. Fans don't care that much about it because it doesn't count, and the starters aren't playing the full sequence, and coaches are doing vanilla schemes or doing vanilla plays and all that. But there's a reason for all of that. Sometimes, and also you don't want to just play your whole starters throughout the whole game, because not only because you don't want to get hurt, but again, you want other players to get a shot so they can develop themselves, because somebody might go down. That starter might go down. A starter might go down. A lot of starters might go down. A lot of players who's playing might go down. And then that guy that you played in the preseason game, he made the team. Now he's his time to shine. Now he can be used, because the coaches know this. Like, the coaches be like, this guy, I might need this guy in later the regular season. I might need this guy week 1, because who knows what might happen week 1. So that's what it's about. Personnel also. So yeah, check out like this. So I'm going to play what Bill Cowher said. I thought this was a very credible sequence of what Bill Cowher said, so you can check it out. I'm going to play it right now.
Football happening. Preseason football. How did you feel about it as a coach? Obviously, it was viewed vastly different back whenever you were leading the Pittsburgh Steelers versus where it is now. The future, I think they're going to be getting rid of games and have joint practices. But how did you view preseason, and how do you view it now?
I think you look at the preseason, and to me, I looked at segments of it when our starters were in.
So just real quick, before Bill Cowher answers that question, I'm very curious to hear his whole segment. I have respect for Bill Cowher. He's one of the head coaches that I have some good respect for. But I have respect for all the coaches, to be honest with you. But yeah, he's a credible coach for me to listen to, for us to listen to and learn from. However, anyway, but the joint practices, that's something I failed to mention. That's something that's going to be very interesting. I know that some coaches, they prefer joint practices over the preseason. Now, preseason games. And that's because reps matters a lot in football. Reps matter for every single position in football. And again, the only way to get better at playing football. Well, hold on. Let me back up. I won't say the only way. The best way of getting better at football is playing football. That's the best way. So with your training, everything, you want your training and everything that you do to simulate game time, speed, game time, football, like actual game time. You want it to mimic that to the best of its capability. That's why sometimes you will have players when they train, you see them on the beach or they train in gym. Sometimes they'll have their helmets on, because it's getting as close as you possibly can to actual game time playing. So joint practices, that's something that's going to be very interesting. I don't think it should literally replace preseason games. I don't think that would be a good idea, to be honest. I honestly don't. I think the NFL is doing too much on trying to change the game. Like, leave the game how it is, to be honest. The game is great for how it is right now. But I'm not opposed to exploring things, but I think you can do too harm. It could be too much. There's a such thing as too much of a good thing. So it can be more harm than good if you change too much of it. You're never going to make the game perfect. So I think that joint practices there could be more of that, and you can probably somehow schedule joint practices with preseason games, but which they already are doing now. But fully having them replace preseason games, in my opinion, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm curious to see how other players feel about that, but I do hear that coaches really do love joint practices. because it gives them more control of the environment, and it gives them more of an opportunity to get more reps in for their players, and more players to get in into their, and see if they fit their scheme and their systems as well. So maybe it can. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't just have it just fully replace it. It would be great for it to be an additional thing, have them complement each other. Joint practices in preseason games. Maybe somehow you can have the starters do, and that's another thing too. The starters will be more involved in joint practices as opposed to them being more involved in preseason games. So you can also monitor how fast the speed will go between games and joint practices as well. So, yeah.
And there, how efficiently were we in terms of what we were able to do collectively. But I use it as an opportunity to develop young players. I get concerned about the concept of going 18-2. You say, well, the fans don't like the preseason games. Well, it's not about what pleasing the fans. Get other people, lower the prices. It's about developing players. These are players you're going to ask to play at some point week 7, week 10, maybe even week 12, and the only past experience they're going to have playing will be in the preseason. So I want to see these guys who are in practice, what they're like when the bullets are flying, what they're like in game-like situations, who can I count on, where do I have real depth, and where do I really have minimal depth, because the only way I can really assess them so many times is in the game. You see great practice players, but you really see how they really play in course of a real live game. So to take that away to help stop developing players is a concern of mine.
Joint practices are seemingly going to be the replacement for it. Do you, kind of, what do you thought?
Nah, joint practice is what? We have 7-on-7, we have blitz drill, we have 1 minute. Again, these are all situational things that you do practice, and it's great to have more people. You're going against another group. But live situational football, where you have officials backing you up 10 yards, you have the change of possession that takes place, somebody else goes down. These are the things that you have to deal with in a regular season. Who can I count on? So I need to have these guys in live situations, knowing exactly what they're able to do, and I want to see how they respond in the game. Not how I find out how they respond in week 4 or 5 when now I have no other choice. And this guy really played, one series in the preseason?
Yeah, I think an earthquake has hit a couple times in Indianapolis, down in Charlotte as well. Not in Ohio, happy you're saying. Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying. What Bill Cowher just said. He said, I have this young guy who will play at week 5, and he only had 1 appearance in a preseason game, in 1 segment in the preseason. So that's the point I'm making. That's how important. That's why I say that's why preseason is so important. And I'm speaking from experience, because when I used to play football, it was very important, especially for somebody like me who was still learning the game. And I had to get as many reps as I could possibly, because I wasn't a starter. And so I knew how important it was. And also now when I study scouting now, and I'm also highly considering getting into coaching. I see how important this stuff is, like all this stuff that leads up into the regular season. The regular season is the ultimate test. You don't have the regular season you don't leave the regular season open for you to test schemes and test plays. So it's completely stupid to say that coaches do absolutely no scheming in preseason. That is just dumb. The whole point of football is to replicate everything that you're going to do before the regular season comes. You don't replicate it to its max extreme, but you build up to it slowly. That's the whole point. All spring training, off season, and in training camp, and all that preseason games, all that stuff. That's the whole point of that stuff. That's why it's important to practice, to train, and all that, to keep your body also healthy as well. All this stuff matters. You don't leave you don't have the regular season come up to test things. All that stuff that the regular season is just you mimicking everything that you have already instilled and created before the regular season even happened. It's like we've already done this before. We went through this 1 billion times before the regular season happened. Like, you should already fucking know this. Like, why are you screwing up in the regular season? Like, when you're supposed to screw up in the off season, that's when you're supposed to screw up, not in the regular season. You should already have this down, especially when you're practicing. It can be annoying if a receiver runs the wrong route, or the quarterback he probably doesn't even know how to read the defense, or he's messing up on the plays, or whatever, or there's bad communication and all that as well. Like, communication is everything in football. And so coaches and players and coordinators and all that, they're going through all that stuff in the off season. They're not doing all that stuff in the regular season. It's like we have already went through all this. So, that's pretty much what Bill Cowher is talking about.
Yeah, and we don't know if it's an actual earthquake or if it's just the electricity of Coach Bill Cowher. Your screen is bouncing whenever you're going, and it is. I love it. I started bouncing with you, just team aspect. AJ left you hanging there, thinking, it's kind of that's AJ football. You know what I mean? AJ, go ahead, pal.
Coach, this is for me. I don't know if anyone else cares, but can you compare what it was like when you were in training camp as a player compared to now, and how different it might be?
Yeah, it's much different, honestly, just having one practice a day. I always thought about training camp of having 2 practices. And, when I was there, Dick Vermeil, it was 2 padded practices a day for an extended period of time. So, but I used to have
See, that's another thing. I forgot about that, 2-a-days. I don't even think they even have 2-a-days anymore, I know the NFL doesn't. And I don't think college does. I think some schools in college has 2-a-days still, but I wonder if high school even still does 2-a-days. The game has changed so much throughout time, even since when I was playing. So that's interesting.
Take off the pads in the morning and kind of work specialized situations, 1 minute teamwork, and then you had the padded practice in the afternoon. So it was. A 2-day was a grind, and it was like you were together. And so now all of a sudden we're doing everything in the morning one time. Are we even meeting at night? I don't know. I think you lose a little of the camaraderie, which I thought training camp was all about, was spending that time together collectively. And all of a sudden it's just you and them, and over a period of time, you create.
I remember when I was playing high school football in Alabama, we used to have 3-a-days. Like, we will have practice early in the morning. I forgot. I think it was probably like 7 in the morning, and then we'll have practice again in the afternoon, like around 2 p.m. Each practice I think was like 2 hours, and then we'll have it in the afternoon, and then we'll come back and we'll have practice at night. And that's when at night we will really run like a lot of plays, a lot of schemes and everything at night. And that's what we used to do when I played football at Thompson High School when I was living in Alabama. So again, what Bill Cowher is talking about is it's like now when you're only having one time to practice, you're like, it's a lot that you're cramming in, a lot. Football isn't a complicated sport. It's complicated to a lot of people, but it's really not. But it can be very complicated when you are learning it and when you are coaching it. And so there's a process of breaking it down to simplify it for players to understand. And then when you are learning or like coaching these schemes and these plays and getting your personnel together, your depth chart and your roster and all, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a lot to freaking establish in one setting, so.
Create a bond. You create a trust, an understanding of the guys you're lined up next to, and I think a little of that gets lost right now, Jay, in my opinion, because of the fact that we're not together, we're not asking them to do so much. I love training camp, and we used to go up to Latrobe, and that was a special place.
Yeah, St. Vincent's obviously. I used to go up and watch your teams as a kid, because it was free. You get to go there. You get to meet everybody. A little low five, high five. How you doing? Keep it moving. Maybe get a chance to see Chris Fuamato Mafala. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or Bam do the entire. It was slash play wide receiver in one of the drills. Maybe it'll be a punt returner in the middle of the drills. Those were good times. Those things. And for teams, when I was on the Colts, we went every year. We went somewhere. First, it was Rose Holman in Terre Haute.
This is something I'm just thinking about. I don't know if this is a fact or anything, but for some reason, I don't know if it's just me, But I feel like a lot of players nowadays get hurt more often than they used to back in the day, back in the early 2000s. It just seems like to me a lot of guys are getting hurt off very, very simple, small things, like, and that's something that's. Oh, Tony Jefferson just texted me. So my bad. That's one of the players that I know. I know his dad and his family and everything. But anyway, my fault. But my apologies. But anyway, I want to go ahead and text him back because he saw me end this video soon. But I want to. I forgot. I lost the train of thought. My apologies. Yeah, but I feel like that a lot of players have been getting hurt a lot more lately. I mean, and I wonder if it's because there isn't a lot of how can I put it? There is not that much practice anymore. Like what Bill Cowher is talking about, I mean, you go from 2-a-days to 1-a-days now. Players aren't practicing that much. More guys are having more time. Training by themselves, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But those padded practices, that training camp, that grind in the off season, that was getting players healthy. That's the whole point of the development. Not only just the schemes and getting coaches comfortable with their play calling and the schemes and their personnel and their depth chart and the roster, and even in the NFL with the scouts and everything, everything like that. It was also getting guys healthy, getting guys, getting their body, being able to withstand the demanding nature of football in the regular season. But I want to do some research because I don't know if what I'm saying is actually factual about more guys getting hurt more today than they were back in the day. I don't know how factual that was, but it is something to consider, because especially when you think about how more demanding and more physical and more brutal and hard and heavy hitting the NFL was football, and the NFL was back in the days as opposed to now. The game is a lot more softer now. I mean, it's becoming more and more like flag football, and it's becoming more and more like flag football. And you got Roger Goodell coming up with all these scenarios and these tests or whatever, trying to how make the game safer. It's football, but guys are getting hurt more. I mean, you got guys getting hurt in freaking practice, but back in the day when the game was so much more physical, I don't think guys was even getting hurt that much. That's something I'm going to look into. I'm going to do my research on that. That's a case study right there. So yeah, let's just finish this up real quick.
Indiana, home of the engineers. Smart. It's a smart area there. Then we went up to Anderson University, which was a Christian, a super duper religious school. It was awesome. Getting away though is, for me, I got to sleep and hang out, and I was certainly doing a lot of this. Yeah,
motivating.
But I was trying to bring the energy. But watching everybody kind of grind together, it's like blood, sweat, and tears almost. It builds you. There's a certain development and a bond that can only be kind of earned through that. And I don't know if it's ever going to be gone, because I think training camp's always going to suck in football because it's a physical contact sport. But it does feel like it's all getting more commercialized. It's all kind of getting a little bit more modern and everything like that. And in St. Vincent this year, for the first time, long time, quarterback battle. Let's go to Hammer. Ton Diggs.
Yeah, Coach.
Okay, yeah. So we leave it on that note. So, I mean, I kind of, Pat McAfee he kind of like jumped ship on there. I wanted to focus more on preseason. But, yeah, so preseason matters, man. I mean, it does. I definitely understand why fans don't like it. My fans say it doesn't matter. My fans say it's not that important. From a fan's perspective, it doesn't. I guess you can say it doesn't really matter that much, because you're ready for this regular season to happen. These preseason games doesn't matter when you're talking about winning, when regular season wins, and that's why sometimes and that's when you should say it's preseason, because sometimes you'll have guys who get upset about a player not playing well, and then it's just, and if their team lost, and it's like, okay, calm down, bro. It's just preseason. If you're gonna hear somebody like me say it's just preseason, what I'm saying is that the wins and losses it matters. It does matter because you still want to be competitive. You want to keep that competitive nature. Like, that's the time to be competitive. Any time when you're suiting up, you're putting those pads on, you're stepping on that football field, even whether it's a practice field or not, whether it's a facility or not, you need to be competitive. You got to have that competitive spirit in you. But at the same time, the wins and losses, they don't hold as much significance as a player's development. A player's development and a player improving, and and a coach being able to visually imagine and see in real time the schemes and the plays and everything that he's creating, that matters more than just a win and loss. You see what I'm saying? So there could be more of a win in the nature when you lose a game, because now you can say, oh, okay, I see this receiver, he's actually getting a lot better than where he really was when he first signed with us. Or this quarterback, his pocket presence is becoming a lot better. This defensive back, he is becoming better and picking up the defense. Stuff like that. Or the safety more. The linebacker. Stuff like that. You can really see those things accumulating in preseason. If you have a loss. There are some teams who went 4-0 and then they suck in the regular season. There are teams who sucked in the preseason and they were dominant in the regular season. There are players who played bad in the preseason and they were really great in the regular season. There were guys who were really great in the preseason and they didn't see the field at all in the regular season because they sucked so bad. So that's what I'm basically trying to say. So we'll leave it at that. Football matters all around. Preseason matters. I hope the NFL doesn't completely take the preseason games away. I mean, maybe you can sim it down to 2, maybe, and then all the other ones can be joint practices. Maybe you can start it off with 2 2 weeks of all the whole entire league just doing joint practices, and then you end 2 more weeks with just 2 preseason games leading up to the regular season, or you can switch it, or you can just go back and forth. I don't know. Just don't completely take it away. That's all I'm saying. I think that's a terrible idea. Like, reflect on the back what Bill Cowher is saying, because you are simulating real game time, and then you got the referees, everything like that. That's not all. You're not doing all that in joint practices the same way how you are in game time. So we'll leave it at that. I'll be back. I'm going to create more work. I'm going to create more videos, more content, and I'm going to keep studying the game even more and more and more on top of what I already know. Because you can never know everything about football. I believe that you can just keep learning and growing and growing and growing in the sport, in the game. I am actually, additional to me studying scouting, I'm also heavily considering coaching as well. So I'm going to start attending like coaching seminars and stuff like that. I'm studying, in my opinion, the greatest coach of all time, Vince Lombardi, studying how he really approached the game, how he studied the game, watching a lot of documentaries on Vince Lombardi, reading books on Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi was definitely the GOAT in my book. Definitely was. So we're going to be back at it. I'm going to be doing some more videos. I'll be seeing you tomorrow, and we here all day.